Good morning. So reading aloud, making sense out of sounds. This is the last chapter. We've learned 4 chapters. Now we've come to the last one, vowels and consonants. If you have noticed this, we actually come from a general picture to the more detailed things. And the vowels and consonants are the most detailed things about English pronunciation. First of all, I think we need to have a brief summary, a brief revision of what we learned in the previous 4 lectures. And also, I'd like to take this chance to outline the structure of all the 5 chapters in this course, the relationships between them. In the first chapter, we talked about reading aloud, the implications about reading aloud. What does it mean? And I told you that I like to use 2 sentences to describe the implications of reading aloud. The first thing would be to make sense out of sound. And that means we need to learn how to make sense out of sounds in the English language, in this particular language. And the second thing is to take care of the sense, and that the sounds will take care of themselves. That means when we study English pronunciation or when we do reading aloud, the most important thing that we need to bear in mind would be to mind the meaning. Think about the meaning all the time. What does it mean? What does the passage mean? What does the story mean? Always think about what you're going to read aloud means. And then that will help you to use the correct pronunciation and intonation in the English language. So in the previous 4 lectures, we discussed the close relationship between sounds and sense, that is, the sounds and meaning. Of course, I noticed that many students are puzzled about how it means by the relationship between sounds and sense. Because actually, what I was talking about is not the relationship between sounds and sense, but the combination of sounds and sense. That is, how the combination of English speech sounds can represent meaning that the speaker intends to convey. In other words, when I talk about the relationship between sounds and sense, I actually mean the combination of speech sounds is closely related to the meaning we intend to convey. In other words, when we talk about individual sounds, they do not directly correspond to meaning. Okay, now let's have a brief revision of pronunciation itself. What does it mean? What does it include? There are 2 things when we talk about pronunciation. Firstly, we mean speech sounds. Those are vowels and consonants, the part that we're most familiar with. 元音辅音. That's the speech sounds. Speech. That means, okay, if we say speech, it's not just utterance. It's a kind of utterance, but the utterance stands for meaning. That's speech, so the human language, speech sounds. And then next is connected speech. So when we talk about speech sounds, we actually mean the individual sounds, vowels and consonants. And then connected speech, it means, well, vowels and consonants come together. Okay, speech sounds, vowels and consonants. What about connected speech? In the previous 4 chapters, we talked about this big category. What are they? these things, connected speech, mainly rhythm and intonation, 节奏, 语调. So they are things when we talk about connected speech. There is no rhythm and intonation when only individual sounds occur. And in Chapter 3, we also talked about sentence stress and weak form. The important role that sentence stress and weak form plays in the connected speech is that then the pronunciation or the command of sentence stress and weak form would be essential to the realization of rhythm and intonation. If you want to command the English rhythm and the intonation, and you don't know how to use sentence stress and weak form, and you won't be successful. So they're very useful to the realization of rhythm and intonation. In this sense, we say that then rhythm, intonation, sentence stress, and weak forms, they're related, closely related to each other, very closely related to each other. We also talked about sound changes. It's like some sounds change, sound changes occur in certain phonetic environment. And all these things occur only in connected speech. It has nothing to do with individual sounds only. When we talk about sound changes, we say that, well, they also have some relationship with rhythm, intonation, sentence stress, and weak form. That is, when we want to realize all the three things, rhythm, intonation, sentence stress, and weak form, we need the help of sound changes. Of course, the primary motive of sound changes is what? The primary motive of sound changes is for the convenience of articulatory organs, 是为了发音器官的方便. And then, in terms of pronunciation of the sounds only, we say sound changes have close relationship with consonants and vowels. It's the change in the pronunciation of vowels and consonants. And today, we're going to talk about individual sounds, vowels, and consonants. And this is the only chapter I will mention very, very little about sounds. And this is the part when we say that language is arbitrary. It's arbitrary. 就说语言是任意性的. That means the individual sounds, vowels, and consonants have very little to do with the meaning. But what needs our attention is this. In actual use of English, individual sounds seldom occur, except for R, A, and so on. Very, very small number, very few words or sounds that may occur individually. And the most of the speech sounds have to occur in combination or in connected speech. Right. There are 3 parts in this chapter. This is a big one. This is a long chapter. There are 3 parts. First, we're going to have a brief summary of the English speech sounds. And then in the second part, we're going to discuss Chinese students' problems or difficulties in English pronunciation. And finally, we're going to have a brief discussion about the difference between the British model and the American model. And this part is also what most students would be interested in.